Alright, let's do a little practice with this limiting reagent stuff then. So our first practice problem: at high temperature, sulfur combines with iron to form a brown-black precipitate, and it's iron 2 sulfide. So if we take a look at this reaction, let's remember rule number 1, which is you always want to underline your givens. So given number 1, 7.62 grams of iron and 8.67 grams of sulfur. So then if we take a look at the question, what the product that we're going to be going for from both of those is going to be iron sulfide. So remember, to start out, we always just go from grams to moles to moles. So we're going to take both of these givens, the 7.62 grams of iron, the 8.67 grams of sulfur, and go from grams to moles of iron sulfide. Alright, so let's do that first given then. 7.62 grams of iron. And if we look on the periodic table, iron is 55.8 grams for every 1 mole. And let's make sure we label our units. Jones, grams, grams. Now we come up to our reaction, and this is a nice simple one to start with because it's all a 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 mole of iron is going to produce 1 mole of iron sulfide. Moles cancels out the moles. And oops, we are ready to stop right there. So this is going to tell us how many moles of iron sulfide can be produced from 7.62 grams of iron. If we put that in our calculators, it's 1.37 or 0.137 moles of iron sulfide. Okay, so that was just one ingredient, though. We've got to do the other ingredient now, and that's 8.67 grams of sulfur. In this case, sulfur is just S. So 1 mole of sulfur is 32.1 grams of sulfur. Grams of sulfur cancels out grams of sulfur. And luckily for us, it's still a 1-to-1 ratio, which makes the calculations a little bit easier. So now this guy produces 0.270 moles of iron sulfide. Alright, the question to ask yourself now is, which of those two numbers is bigger? 0.270 is bigger, so that means we're not going to be able to produce that many moles of iron sulfide. We need to go with the smaller number because that's going to be our limiting reactant. So that means 0.137 is the actual number. This 0.270 we can cancel out and get rid of. We can only produce 0.137 moles of iron sulfide. Alright, so then the next step is to take that number and turn it into grams. So we're just going to go that last step then. Grams, moles to grams. Okay, so we have 0.137 moles of iron sulfide, and just doing that last step of moles to grams right here. So 1 mole of iron sulfide would weigh 87.9 grams of iron sulfide. Moles cancels out moles. And this would equal out to be then 12.0 grams of FeS. So if this reaction was done with these particular amounts, 7.62 grams of iron and 8.67 grams of sulfur, we could produce at most 12.0 grams of iron sulfide. So this would be our theoretical yield of iron sulfide from those two ingredients. Alright, so that is part A of this reaction. I'm sorry, that's part B of this reaction. We've already figured out part A. The limiting reagent would have been the iron, and the excess reagent would have been the sulfur. So we can label those two if we want. Then the next question asks us, how much excess reactant is there? So sulfur is our excess. So the question is asking, how much sulfur do we have left over at the end? Because all of it didn't react. There's going to be some of it left in the reaction vessel. Alright, so for this step, when we want to calculate the excess, we start with the moles that we can produce, and we've already figured out that we can produce 0.137 moles of iron sulfide. But now we're going to take that number and we're going to trace it back to the grams of the excess. So we're starting right here with moles of iron sulfide. We're going to go from moles to grams, but the grams that we're looking for now is of the sulfur, so our excess reagent. Alright, so there was 1 mole of iron sulfide for every 1 mole of sulfur. And 1 mole of sulfur is 32.1 grams of sulfur. So that means what we needed in order to produce 0.137 moles of iron sulfide, we needed to have only 4.40 grams of sulfur. So to do this reaction, to drive it to completion, we would only have needed 4.4 grams of sulfur, but we had 8.67 grams of sulfur. If we use the 4.40 grams of sulfur to do this reaction, that means we're only going to have, or we're going to have left over at the end, 4.27 grams of sulfur in excess. So there would be left over in the container 4.27 grams of sulfur.